files that was brand new that I'd never seen before is the beta shift parameter. So I know the Air Force changed how the degradation curve behaves with this beta shift. So if you're looking at builder outputs and going, I don't see that behavior and how my assets degrade over time, you can actually change some of the configuration in the backend database to change the shape of your curve. Bread, and that has a whole help guide to itself. And then the API, there's already talks, everybody's talking about, I want to get this feed into Tableau automated. I'm looking at using the API to do that. I want to, change how this behavior works or kind of feed this tool. All of that is really facilitated through those programming interfaces. So they have their guide available online. Research, I even got smaller font, I'm sorry, but this is a product birthed out of a research organization. Their whole, HR policies and, hiring and raises are based upon being published and getting kind of research credentials. So if you want to know what the Weibull distribution and why that was the case, all the links are there. You can do the deep dive research of how they justified the model based upon their observation. Touching on custom reports. This is a free resource demonstration, so I wanted to make sure everybody knows those Searle created custom reports. A lot of them were birthed out of the Air Force with their QA and QC processes. They have made as far as a standard set. So if you have heard of Final 9 but don't have it available on your server, ask Searle, ask us, ask any one of the hosts, anybody that has that, create a PLA distribution, and they can get that custom report file downloaded, and installed on your server. There is a guide that steps through each one of those reports, what's in them, what's not, where they're run in the organization, and that's available to you. We have a smaller set, but all of our files that have been designed and created for a specific client, some of which with DHA, some with National Nuclear Security Administration. If you are a federal user and would like that available to you, ask us and we'll send you the files. Searle is used to deploying our reports on their servers. Some of them run longer than others because we have some pretty intense data calls.
Can you do the unmute from your?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
I mentioned that there are reference materials to what's in each one of those reports. So this PDF is available on their website. All of their custom report files are described in this document. It's important to know when you're working with a custom report, is this a building level report, a site, a complex? Can you run it at the org level? So not all reports are designed to run at all levels of the hierarchy. Is it preferable to export as an Excel or a PDF? And what's in that? Sorry, let me scroll down. So you can see a screenshot. What is its intended use? All of the data fields as columns, especially for your Excel spreadsheets, are labeled and identified, which order. And then one of the things that I really like at the end is some information about creating your own custom report. So if you are create a PLA and you have access to a server and you want to start learning how to install a RDL file, it's in their custom report guide as far as how to establish a data source, load that, and make it available. It still takes a SQL programmer to be able to design them and build them, but it's not that impossible. It is. If you've ever looked at the builder database, you might with how impossible it is to make these reports logical. In the last summit, we did a step-by-step walkthrough of all the custom reports, so it's available back in our resources. I don't want to spend too much time, but highlight some of those things that are only available by us. The audit report is a list of things that have changed. So somewhere in the deep archives of the database, if you as a person with inventory read-write privileges decides to delete a site, and then somebody else comes in and says, hey, where did my site go? Builder doesn't leave a sand trail for the user to look at to see who did that action. The only way to do so is to look into the audit table within the database. So this report allows you to kind of pull by user, by date, what has changed. And for some things, it even records the before and after. I've seen people ask to run this to make sure that their contracted staff that's paid every day to update Builder, why haven't you logged in 6 months? So every user, every activity is tracked in the audit table. You can pull that out. It's not pretty, but it gives you data.
For the record, I just got that report loaded onto the instance.
Okay.
Just last week.
Was that right?
Our catalog is very similar to the Searle version. Cost modifier is a feature that not very many people use, but if you wanted to further refine the costs in Builder, maybe you have a group of buildings that are in a protected zone that every work item should now be double the cost because it's in a protected zone. You can set up a cost modifier for the building level and say, I'm assigning this to the extra security cost. If you have a building that is maybe hazardous, waste material related, you want to do an adder for that. If you require a crane to access a certain air handler, you can even create a cost modifier specific to the section that says crane required. It's a $5,000 adder. So this is a feature that's able to be enabled in your server, and if you want to run a report to see what's assigned and what's the impact of that assignment, that's the report to use. Paul went over the QA review. This is 1 row per section. This is a dump of everything. So what do I have? What was its rating? What was the inspections? Are there photos? Is there work? All of that's in the QA review. If you want to go down to the section detail level, that's the next report. A scenario summary I went over in day 1. This is the analysis of kind of what did that scenario tell me about my spend over the next 5 to 10 years. And then our site report is kind of the pretty summary of, for a non-builder user, what should I look at in my site? It's the closest we could emulate a traditional FCA report out of Builder directly. So if you're used to a traditional FCA where somebody goes down, takes pictures of distresses, gives you a project write-up, gives you a priority score, tells you an appendix, tells you why we're here, who we are, that's the site report. Every data field that we use in one of our reports, we put into the appendix. So if you don't know what the equipment ID is, what is the MDI, what is a GUID, if it's in a report and it is ever used, we define it. So this is also available on our report guide that is in the Builder Summit resources. All right, now the fun part. They have added to their training materials, and as a commercial supplier of training, it's not necessarily my best interest, but I think it's fun anyways. All of their training is now captured in this learning management system. It's a Moodle system, and so you can self-register if you are in a .mil, AF.mil, Navy Mil, Mail Mil, Coast Guard Mil, DECA Mil, DIA, AFIT, AFCENT, NL, MDA. You don't need to get special permissions to be able to log in and register, take one of these classes. They assume that you're in the Builder community. Please use one of those things. If you are not in one of those email domains, send an email to buildersupport@usace.army.mil and say I would like access to the training.
Can you go back one page?
So if I go to their website, smserdic.dren.mil, this is what you see. I start by going to the products and builder. So you see that now that you're looking at the builder, scroll all the way to the bottom and you see your builder training materials. And now I'm already logged in, so that's what you see. If you are not logged in, if you hit that training link and you're not a registered user, you're going to see an opportunity to kind of log in as a guest. Or if this is your first time here and you want to create a new account, if you have one of those Army mail mill emails, you can create a new account live. One of the items that was reminded to me is when we have complaints, when we have bugs, we get oftentimes lazy and shoot an email to our Sterile POC or give them a call and say, hey, this isn't working right. I think there's something wrong with something. That's not a bad place to start, but if you create an account and get into their support site, you can create a ticket. Once you create a ticket, you force them to manage and track it and trace it, reproduce it, and it gets into their contracted support help desk. So let your POC know you've got an issue, but also use the tool and make sure that it doesn't get lost in an email thread. Everybody gets busy, and it's nice to have that ticket. So I'm logged in. Now that you see that you have a dashboard and you have courses available to you. We've already kind of covered the Enterprise SMS courses. So these are the modules that are available. And the registration is also required for the Fall Summit. So every one of those videos that we kind of created little snapshots of, try to consolidate 20 minutes into 2 minutes, and left out quite a bit. That was just to whet your appetite. Go in here, watch the real content. What I'm going to be talking about is the SMS elements that are something that you can come to and see without registration as well. So, all the training material that I'm showing to you today is available to guests. You don't even need to create an account. Just the Summit and the eSMS training requires you to register. If you just want to see the builder stuff and the SMS overview and the Army reassessment videos, just log in as a guest. So back to when you hit that training site, log in as guest, and now you don't see the other elements, but you do see these 3 training material. The SMS overview is a single 33-minute video. It is PowerPoints with an audio translation, kind of audio stepping you through it. If you are trying to explain to somebody that is going to be the recipient of a bunch of guests walking around with clipboards and cameras, you might want to not sit down and give them the 2-day training, but you do want to let them know why they're there, what is Builder trying to accomplish. This is kind of that video. So these are the slides you've probably seen if you've been in the Builder community for a while, for 10 years. But it steps through how the assessment works, how the methodology functions. So here, back in the web, back at the training site, SMS overview. You see that there is a class. So this Moodle is meant for online education. So you have to click into the class and then enter the video.
Welcome to the introductory lesson for the Sustainment Management System.
And that's all I'm going to show about that. If you want to take that next step level deeper, and say, well, that 30 minutes was nice, but I really want to see all of the screens on the page. I want to have somebody walk me through, how do I create a building? How do I run a work plan? How do I close out a work plan? There is the Builder 3 training. So we are still on Builder 3.6, so it's fairly safe to assume while it may not match exactly 3.6 screens, it's going to be close. One tip is if you are especially in IE and you try to start the training, it is a pop-up and it might be blocked. So look at your browser, disable pop-ups for the site, allow it to get into that training. Let's see if in the Builder 3, every kind of training module, whether it be inventory, condition assessment, has two different content types. You have your lessons, which are PowerPoint and pictures and a walkthrough. So you kind of, what is an example of a distress survey? How are we going to talk about severity level? PowerPoint, audio, and then you have a demo video, separate file, and says, all right, now I'm going to walk through and actually click into Builder and add a distress survey. So overall, it's about 5 hours, so you could say this is a day training class. It is passive, you still need to just click and consume, but you have a lesson plan, which is that PowerPoint and pictures, and then demo video for each one. So to get there in Builder, I'm going to close my SMS. Overview and click into the Builder training. It says Builder 3X, your description, and then Builder Fundamentals has two components. The first is that lesson plan, and then you log in and click through the Builder.
Welcome to the Builder Fundamentals lesson.
And that's what I'm going to show about that. All right. It's getting late in the afternoon. I want to, get you guys back your time. The last piece that I thought is, super valuable that we were actually directly involved with that I didn't see them post until just recently is the Army reassessment videos. There was a contract action to say, hey, we would like to have in-field gathered videos of what would it take to come back after an assessment and update Builder for my foundations? Give me an introduction, how do I manage my data quality? So there's a series of videos. Total length is about 3 hours, but it's somebody actually staring at and talking to you, and it's also system specific, where a lot of the Searle provided training about how do I add a direct rating, how do I do a distress survey, how do I run a work plan is usually software training. This is more assessor training. This is specific to the Army scope of work. So if you're familiar with that 700-page manual, there's a lot of rules about how to gather foundations, what is included in my electrical, what's excluded. So this is, I'll just show you. Back to the web. I'm still logged in as a guest, completely open and available. U.S. Army Builder Reassessment Training. There's an introduction video that's a half an hour long, includes an interview with the Fort Benning lead facility manager, kind of from his perspective, why is the Army doing this? How is he planning on using the data? And then into, very similar to the Builder Fundamentals, how does Builder think? How are we gathering data? What is the Army Assessment Guide? And here's a reference material, is the manual itself.
Coordinator.
So,
once approved,
there's highlights,
you'll be sent an email with the URL.
screen cover over, but definitely suggest it's worth the half an hour. If you especially are trying to bring up a new person, I saw you guys have in-house training materials.
Materials don't degrade on a straight line. Every section has a life cycle curve.
Who's that handsome man?
For a section of 6 exterior aluminum doors. They were installed in 2005 and have a 20-year design life.
No one's gonna run him over. He's wearing a high-vis vest. So the introduction, kind of what are we trying to accomplish? How does the think from a field perspective, from an FM perspective, right into a software demo, inventory itself, as well as about 38 minutes. It also includes the same, live shot materials, screen covers with explanations, and how to do a good direct rating. A lot of the training that you saw on day one about how do I get to an amber plus versus an amber minus. How do I make sure that I'm consistent with the other people on my team? This is all for reassessment. So this is meant for if you happen to work at that installation, you're trying to come back and update something that's already been put in. How do I get a good rating? The last of what we call the big videos, because this one is also 30 minutes, is business rules and data quality. 37 minutes, very similar to day one boot camp, where we're saying, let's think about what happens after you've completed your reassessment. How do I make sure that I was compliant with the rules? How do I, get my data in and out of Builder, and then provide that quality assurance? What should I search for in my site, even to identify what data do I need to fix? You can say, let's sort for data quality problems, then log in and address it. 37 minutes, well worth it if you are trying to bring up somebody into that role. The last thing that I think is where this material really shines and is different than anything else is system by system specific. The Army Assessment Manual has a kind of extractable section that says this is, if you're just doing Army assessments for HVAC, you don't need to print out all 700 pages, just 200 pages. So while it's not necessarily bite-sized, it's certainly reasonable to put in a backpack. But if you're in the field, it's hard to refer back to it all the time. I would recommend, even if you are a seasoned person and you have groups that have done Builder before, but they haven't used the Army assessment last time they were on an Air Force base, or maybe they did a deck assessment, now they're coming back. Get them in here, review, what do we look for, how do we maintain safety?
Hvac System. This system includes D3010.
Well, look at that handsome man.
D3020 heat generating system.
It's always the same shirt.
D30 cooling generating systems. D3040 safety concern.
So there is always the safety element. There's always, business rules. How do I look for inventory? What are the typical condition
Whatever you
problems?
need to do to stay focused and safe.
Take breaks, drink water, important things.
Right off the bat, the HVAC system in Builder is enormous. There are over 1,300 sections of HVAC equipment available to you.
So, this is not to kind of go over it. It's more to make sure you know that that resource is available.
Amber rating if there are no distresses and it's over 75% of its design line.
It's the only material that I've seen where we actually went out in the field, looked on a roof and said, this is an issue that we found. This is how we're going to talk through that direct rating. Here is how you have to be careful of making a wrong decision or making a unit of measure drop down that's going to throw your numbers off dramatically. So, system by system for all 14, let's see, A10 down to E10. They're not all weighted the same. Your electrical is 11 minutes, and I think superstructure is one of the shorter ones. And it's 4 minutes. So not every system requires the same amount of intensity. Similar to an assessment, you can just send a link to the people, to the material that helps them the most. Questions?
Kurt, we had one on the chapter when you were talking about signing up for the DC Summit.
Yes.
What are the dates?
There are no dates announced yet for the DC Summit. So the question was about, Searle typically would host another summit. I think they are transitioning largely because, as you saw, they're moving to the SMS. So there's an SMS summit in the works that will be for all domains of the SMS at a future date and time.
So we have to move it to Hawaii.
I'm sure that some people would be happy about a summit in Hawaii. My wife being one of them.
Part of, you were talking about reporting earlier in this section. Is there any reports in Builder that is above the site level?
Absolutely.
There is.
Yes. So the catalog, so the question was, are there custom reports that are designed to run at the organization level? And yes. So if I go back to my PDFs,
Is there anything like the final 9 for us showing sites instead of buildings?
so final 9 being kind of a work summary, dollar amount? Or
Yeah,
that's-
showing the 14 or however many systems you have, the color coding, and your SDI and your PCI and your PRD and a few of those other fields. More at the site level, it's showing each site instead of showing each building.
So we have one that we kind of dialed in specifically for NNSA that went to that level, and it created a separate tab for every sub-org, but nothing that I've seen that is generic that has every building to the system level at the org. You could understand that if you ran that at your top org, that would probably time out without finishing.
Yes.
So any report that you run at an org level, you have to expect that somebody might try to run it at the top and it might not succeed. So yeah, the Army has several reports that do run at the top org. These are our scenario summary, cost modifiers, catalog, and audit. You can look across the entire org, and let me go ahead.
Jason, are you looking for the site summary or the systems within the site for all sites? Yeah, so like one line for each site. For each site.
Ah.
Yeah. Not going down to the system level. Right. Okay.
No, that's lacking. The Army lacks that right now. As far as I was aware when I was there, the site level report for that type of command level view, looking
Yeah.
at all your KPIs for that site, was not available. Unless they developed since I left, it wasn't there when I was there.
So find the person at the Army that answers your phone, at the Searle that answers your phone call, and say, if you can give them a spreadsheet starting point, from somebody that builds custom reports, a design is helpful. Because if you say, well, I want a site summary report at the org level, what does that really mean? And so if you can actually identify, if you look at the examples, what we're looking for is, give me a spreadsheet with these are the column names, these are the headings, this is how it's structured, give them a draft, and that certainly expedites the feedback loops necessary to hand it off to a programmer to build. So I was going into the video content. So here is a description of every one of those longer videos of the reassessment. This is specific to Army scope. So when we get into the business rules, some of it is common to everybody that's using Builder. Some of it is specific to Army. And same applies to systems. So the safety concerns, how to inventory is pretty generic and common to everybody. But if you're talking about this is specifically an area of uniformat that's in the catalog that you should not bother to include in your assessment, this is to that Army Guide, table of in-scope, out-of-scope rules. Yes?
Is there any certification on those trainings?
So, our training that we do, the 3-day in class, and I've seen Searle also offer a similar event, where everybody gets a login and password into the training server. They have scripted exercises that they go through, and it's a process. there is a certificate that follows that, and you consider yourself a builder trained individual. All of this is passive, watch it, learn it. There is no online account, there's no exercises, there's no testing to say, did you really get it? The ESMS training has a little quiz, but there's still nothing that you're actually completing. So I have not seen them look to distribute a class certificate because they can't even prove that you didn't hit play and went out, had pizza, and then came back and next, play. For someone that goes through a lot of these materials, I get pretty quick at that next button. I know what you're gonna tell me. All right, next. Yeah, next. So it's the difference between an active like participatory class where there's an expectation of following along versus something that you just watch. And as a quick reminder, the content, if you log in, that does require registration, even if you're a .mil, self-registration is that SMS training and the virtual summit. So, if anybody has questions, they want to dig deeper into any of those elements, the training videos or customer reports, a lot of that's already been talked about, but I do always want to kind of just touch base because every summit has about 20% first-timers, and if you're starting out a program and you don't even know that these reports exist, you could be sitting there trying to just work with what you got, and it would be tough if it's not the customer report set. So at this point we can start the social hour, and again, thanks to our sponsors for even making a social hour possible. We're starting tomorrow at the same time, and thanks again to our roundtable participants, because really it's the dialogue and hearing the stories that makes it come home. Thank you.